Hello, YouTube. One of the things I wanted to go over here is how a lot of modern shooters look at primitive muzzleloaders like these ones here. And the myth is out there that guns like these are not accurate out past even, say, 50 to 75, and certainly not accurate out past 100 yards. And nothing could be further from the truth. In the Revolutionary War, you had soldiers shooting flintlock rifles accurately and making accurate hits up to 200 and 300 yards. And not so with flintlocks, as temperamental as they happen to be, and not quite as reliable the ignition as a percussion rifle. Fast forward to the Civil War, and most people think when it comes to Civil War sharpshooters that you're going to be the Berdan Sharpshooters who are armed with Sharps rifles. And if you do see any percussion guns or any muzzle-loading guns, they're the more expensive Confederate guns like the Whitworth. And nothing can be further from the truth again, because one, the Whitworth was a drastically expensive rifle. It was $15,000 in that time to cost for that much money. It was a very, very expensive gun for the Confederates to purchase. They were British made, they were very delicate, and they were extremely accurate. That was known because of the way the bullet and the rifle was designed. With the rifle, the bullet wasn't exactly even round. But they were notorious for their accuracy. They were also notorious for being temperamental if you didn't treat them right. And so because of that, most people, if you look at, say, something like the CBA mountain rifle, which was a copy of a Hawken, a true Hawken, unlike the Thompson Center Hawken above it, that one of those guns weren't used. Matter of fact, not only were they used, they were more likely to be found, at least in the early part of the war, than the Sharps rifles and the Henrys and the Spencers towards the end of the war. The book on the right is about the Burgess Western Sharpshooter, which is the 66th Illinois. The 66th Illinois was equipped by Horace Dimick. Horace Dimick was a gun maker who was a rival to the Hawken brothers. Dimick, in fact, made plains rifles that were very similar. They actually look closer to the copies of the Hawken rifle that you see that CVA has made, that Traditions makes now, that Thompson Center has made. They are closer to that than a real Hawken. And in fact, because Horace Dimick bought and was going to equip the 66th Illinois with 1,000 rifles, he couldn't even produce enough of his own guns to do it. So he had to buy from every other gunsmith and gunmaker in St. Louis, including the Hawken brothers. And if you look, there's an old picture of the 66th Illinois in uniform, and you'll see two guns that are plains rifles that have the single barrel wedge, and the two guns to the right in the photo that the two guys on the left side, their left, are holding, you will see two barrel wedges each. That is the guaranteed sign of a Hawken. Hawken did not make rifles that had a single barrel wedge to hold the barrel in. You'll always see them with two. And little other idiosyncrasies, like occasionally you'll find a Hawken with a full stock. Only 4 were made with barrels less than 30 inches that have been documented. Most of your Hawkens are anywhere from 32 to 34 or 35 inch barrel. Remember, these guns are all made one at a time. And the calibers for Hawkens were all over the place. There were as small as 38 caliber, up well past 58 caliber. There's even a couple of 62s floating around. There was one documented 69 caliber that was actually made early on. The Dimick rifles were also kind of all over the place. 46, 50, all different calibers. And so what they did is they had to produce a mold for each gun. So you had 1,000 of these rifles equipped in early 1861, and they lasted until basically the regiment went to Georgia around late 1863, and by then the guns were pretty much worn out, and they were all replaced with Henrys. But they did very well in the hands of the 66th Illinois. You also have Confederate sharpshooters who didn't use Whitworths. And one was Sergeant uh, Barry Benson, and he was the 1st South Carolina Infantry. At the end of the war, he ended up getting a Spencer. But a good time of the war, before he was captured twice, escaped twice. But he did use an 1860 Enfield 2-band musket, just a typical issue musket. Instead of the 3-band, the longest version, he had a 2-band, which is in between the musketoon and the full-on infantry musket. His was a 2-band, but it was still basically a fairly large gun, about the size of a Zawab. Very, not huge, but not a carbine or a musketoon. That's basically just a standard infantry musket. That's what a lot of them used. That's like in the book here, the Civil War, the Michigan sharpshooters. They were more or less handed muskets and told to use them. Probably the most unique story and unique individual as a sniper or sharpshooter in the Civil War was Jack Hinson. Jack Hinson, at the age of 61, who was more or less trying to stay neutral in the war, 2 of his sons were killed by Union cavalry. Not only were they killed, they were civilians. They were out hunting. One was 14, one was 17 years old. They were out hunting. The Union cavalry caught them, thought they were guerrillas, put them up against a tree, and shot them. Add insult to injury, they cut the heads off these 2 boys, brought the heads back, and stuck them on the fence post of Jack Hinson's farm. And we're going to arrest Hinson before a family neighbor stepped in and basically said, no, look, don't. Hinson was actually friends with Grant, and he was trying to basically stay out of it, out of all of this. Grant had been recalled to Washington because the higher-ups were going to court-martial him. They didn't like him until Lincoln stepped in and realized how great he was, and he became Lincoln's kind of favorite general, so they weren't going to go near Grant after that. But he never did come back to the Tennessee campaign, which is where he started. So what Hinson did is he swore revenge. Basically a blood oath. This was now a blood feud between him and the Union Army. He went out and had a gun built. Essentially, it was a Kentucky rifle on steroids, 50 caliber. The gunsmith made a mold for conical bullets to go with this gun. It's essentially if you look, it looks kind of like a weirdly put together gun. The reason why is because the materials were not there. The gunsmith could make the gun, make the barrel, make the stock. The lock he had to get from something else because they couldn't get any parts in. So the lock came from another gun. If you look at the gun, it looks kind of hinky, and that's why it does, because the lock was kind of just fit from something else. The sights on this gun are literally a blade front and a simple rear sight, no elevation, just windage only. Hinson, from a bluff on the Tennessee River, was shooting Union troops on board gunboats and transport boats going up the river. He was waiting for the current so that going upstream, the boats had a hard time maneuvering in the current. They had to, even with full steam, they only did a few knots or a few miles an hour. They didn't go very fast. So Hinson waited for that, and he would never really shoot at the boats going downstream because they were going too fast. He'd pick his targets going upstream, and he was shooting out to what is now considered documented 300 to 325 yards, and they know his confirmed kills are at least 36. And this was with nothing but a glorified Kentucky rifle with basic sights. The rifle still exists. It's just been passed down. It's now in the hands of a historian in Tennessee. It's an amazing gun. It weighs 13 pounds. Again, it's 13 pounds. The barrel is huge. If you see the size of the hole in the barrel itself, it looks tiny. And then you got to keep in mind, it's a 50 caliber gun. This gun was designed for long-range shooting. It was just specifically designed for that. You weren't carrying this gun around all over. This is not a gun you're going to run through the woods with. But it just showed that these guns in that time, with less refined powder, ammunition that's not as good. Even the reproduction guns have better rifling. They're more precise. They're put together better tolerances. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I've already shot this Hawken here, this Thompson Hawken. That's got a custom barrel. That's a Green Mountain barrel, and it's 40 caliber. And it's strictly patched round ball. And I've already shot it out to 50 yards, roughly 40 yards, with 395 round ball, 10,000 minutes patch, and it's lubricated in mink oil. Guys have been telling me to try mink oil, and I've tried it, and it does seem to work really well with the patched round ball. I'm going to try the CVA mountain rifle, again, which is a close copy of a Hawken, with the Thompson Center Maxi bullets, which are old school, and they've been around for at least 50 years. They're just a lead bullet. And they're designed, they work really well in this type of rifling. This is a 1 in 66 rifling. This gun does shoot really well with those. And I'm going to try them. 3 of them at 100, at least 125 yards is the length of my range. I can probably stretch it a little more. I'm going to try to get it as far as I can, because it's just as far as the range goes. And I'm going to try with 3 Echo X. This gun's 45 caliber. Maxi bullets with both mink oil and boar butter, Thompson boar butter, which I've been using for years. And I want to see, with just a CVA, the only thing that's ever been done to this gun is, other than I redid it, refinished it a while back, it has an L&R lock in it because the original lock was trashed. This gun is almost 40 years old. I'm going to try to see how far and how accurate, just with these sights, with those bullets, on a rest. I'm not going to use a vise. I'm just going to use something that the front of the barrel is just basically rested. Nothing is going to be bolted in place. Nothing is going to be, no lead sleds, none of that. Just a simple sitting down, this gun rested on something, that's it. Nothing extravagant. And I want to see, as far as I can go, as far as that range goes, how accurate I can get this gun with just the open sights, just with the loads I use now. I normally use 60 grains. I'm going to try 70, get a little more oomph out of it. And I want to see what it can do. And I want to see, again, how far and how much better than 50, 75 yards, which everybody keeps saying. You hear it all and over and over again. These old guns aren't that accurate out to a long distance. I want to prove otherwise. So the next video that's going to be hopefully attached to this, depending on how long they all are, is going to be me at the range shooting this gun, the CVA mountain rifle, at just a cutout of the silhouette target. No markers, no bullseyes, no nothing. It's just going to be a silhouette target. Cardboard silhouette, whatever color I happen to have, but no bullseye, no neck ring, no nothing. Just there. And we'll see what happens. Just to see what I can do with this particular gun. And with that being said, YouTube, have a good day, and we'll see you in the next video at the range.